Hello, Janksters, and welcome to another edition of the MagicJank podcast, the magical gathering where members of Team MagicJank talk about magical gatherings, like we do. So let's go ahead and jump right on into it. My name's Graham. I go by Hamhawks42 on the internet, and I'm joined by two lovely gentlemen. We're starting with Carlo, C. How we doing, man?
Hey everybody, doing good, doing good. Coming off a good pre-release weekend, and excited and ready to play some new standard starting tomorrow.
Excellent. You'll love to see it. Yes, it is coming to Arena. We will be talking about it. And we're also joined by the one and only Jaffer. How's it going, Jaffer? Welcome back.
Hey, it's going okay. I am glad I could be part of this, and I don't get to be part of these podcast episodes that often. And Tiberius is excited to be here too.
Yes.
Excellent. Yes, for those watching the video feed, we have Tiberius, who's Jaffer's cat, just jumping in to say hello. Very adorable, and we appreciate it. Yeah, that's actually one of the great things about this show, especially when this group of hosts get together, is you never know which camera a cat is going to appear on, because there's a possibility on all three of them. It's delightful. And right now we got Tiberius. And yeah, Jaffer, it's always a pleasure having you, man. The rotating cast, we're glad you're in the rotation, because it's always fantastic. All right. So, Aetherdrift. It is upon us. So last week, we did the streamer event. So we had access to the cards, and we were able to jump in and get after it. And then this past week was pre-release as well. Yeah. By the time you, dear listener, are actually tuning into this, there's a decent chance Arena's already launched on the client. If not, it will in just a couple hours. And it's happening. It's upon us. Yeah. So, given what we've had a chance to play with, I really wanted to talk today about what cards performed well, maybe overperformed or met expectations, and what you think might actually change going into Standard. And I know there were also a lot of community decks and other deck lists that other creators were putting around out there. Let's chat about those, because there's some interesting tech that I think could, maybe redefine things. So yeah, we have a lot to talk about, and it all comes down to just the Vroom Vroom set.
Can I say something real quick about it?
Absolutely.
The streamer event. So at the streamer event, usually there's only a best of one queue for those that aren't used to watching, haven't seen it before. And in one streamer event before, the last, I think it was Duskmorn.
Duskmorn.
No, it was Duskmorn. We had
Masters,
pro.
Or did they?
No, Duskmorn. We had Pro Tour competitors that were included. That was the first streamer event that they allowed that, and they opened up a ranked queue, which was best of one as well. But this time around, they couldn't separate the best of one ban list and have a best of one ranked queue, so they opened up best of three. So, which is really nice. I personally do not like playing best of one, so I was playing best of three for 9 hours straight. I only played against 2 content creators the whole entire time, unless if I played against a content creator that queued for the Pro Tour and had a Pro Tour account.
Yeah, and it was interesting too because in Best of One, as y'all know, Monstrous Rage is banned in Best of One standard. So you couldn't exactly queue up in Best of One with Gruul Aggro or Mono Red wanting to play copies of that card.
Leyline of Resonance was.
Oh, I'm sorry, Leyline of Resonance. Yeah.
Effectively Monstrous Rage, but yeah, no.
Yeah.
Same difference.
Right? And so it was interesting because. Not that I expect, the content creators to show up and try to play that card, but I would expect maybe Pro Tour players to attempt it, considering the Pro Tour is standard and Aetherdrift limited. I think a lot of the Pro Tour players were actually jamming a lot of draft, though, because part of the Pro Tour is draft plus standard. So, the earlier that they could test drafting the cards before Chicago, probably, the better for them. So, a lot of the folks who primarily make limited content would appreciate that a lot more because the level of competitiveness is higher, and that's good for them in terms of, evaluating card picks and analysis, right, as they're creating their content. So, y'all know, on our team, we have Isaiah MTG, Headology Magic, Damien F16, Jaffer now, and Just Lola Man, they are primarily limited content creators, and they draft all the time. We're talking people who make Mythic number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 each season play in some hardcore draft. So they know the format, and so for them to play against the higher level of competitive, I think was extremely beneficial for them this go around.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and in general, I love the fact that they have the play queue and the rank queue differentiated for these events. I know at this point it's almost old news, but I just cannot just praise the arena team enough for that decision because I think it sorts out a primary issue with these in that your as far as the constructed ladder is concerned anyway, because showing off the new cards and trying to test to determine what competitive decks are just two different philosophies. So yeah, giving them each a place to play is awesome. Yeah.
Personally, I enjoyed this event more than past streamer events because there was a best of 3 queue. It I'm all for playing new wacky stuff and everything,
Sure.
but not as much as the majority of other content creators. Like I personally, and I feel like a lot of my viewers would prefer to just play new cards and current decks and try building like what's the next best standard deck kind of thing. Which, the fun thing about playing the best of 3 queue, I didn't run into a single bounce deck. I ran into a mono red variant maybe twice in 9 hours.
Okay.
And that was like an Is It based build playing Spell Pierce in it. I played against nothing but new decks too.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, because there were definitely a couple of matches that I've had where, and this has happened with every single early access event I've ever been a part of, where there have been some matches where like the new cards just don't show up. And I've come to realize that there are plenty of situations in which the other person put, 12, 16 new cards in their deck. They just didn't draw them. Like, I understand that sometimes happens. And so I'm trying to give people the benefit of the doubt, if only 16, 17 cards are seen in a game, like they happen to be the old guard. All right, sure, whatever. Like it happens. But it can be kind of frustrating because you want to see the new cards and you want to see how they play. And I'm glad to hear that even in the competitive queues, people were experimenting with, the archetypes and seeing kind of what in this new set can really bring the punishment. And for the record, I think there's some good stuff going on in Aetherdrift. So
yeah, I would say, and this happened to me too, right? Like, and I understand it can be frustrating for some folks. I think the reason this is because, while Aetherdrift might be a fun set, it's not as powerful as like Duskmourn was, right? And I think we talked about this in the last podcast where, like, in my mind, I view Aetherdrift on the same power level as like Karlov Manor, right? Where, like, yes, it adds some tools to standard, but it's not necessarily as highly impactful, right? You didn't have as many like Sheltered by Ghosts, Withering Torment cards, no Kaido type cards in Karlov Manor. It added some tools, and I think some more Karlov Manor cards are playable as they continue to print new sets that synergize better with them. But Duskmourn was overtly powerful. Like, you think about the Overlords, right? All the Overlords are played, some of them in multiple formats. Kaido, I never thought they would make another card that was similar to Wandering Emperor in terms of power level, but here we are, right? So, I view it in that sense. That's not me calling Aetherdrift a bad set. Aetherdrift is a good set. I really enjoyed playing a lot of the new cards. But in terms of like what new tools you can add to current existing decks means you got to compete in terms of the same card power level with ones that exist there, right? So like, tell me what in Aetherdrift is better than Storm Chaser's talent plus this town ain't big enough combo, and you can't, right? Because not a lot of synergies can currently be as powerful as that loop unless you find a way to interact with it. So, for example, something we talked about in the last podcast too was, the artifact strategy is getting a little bit of a push, right? Decks like Simulacrum Synthesizer weren't really playable in the last 2 iterations of Standard, talking Duskmourn and Foundations. But being Aetherdrift is a primary artifact set, just about, it got some new tools like Repurposing Bay. That lets you pot out for things, and possibly Riptide Gearhulk if you're into that card. That's that blue-white Gearhulk, right? And so I found myself playing a build of blue-white Simulacrum Synthesizer, playing Repurposing Bay, that card, some Riptide Gearhulks, and a little bit of a combo with Boom Mobile and Radiant Lotus because we're fun. But there were like 2 or 3 games where I just drew the Simulacrum Synthesizer part of the deck,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't get to play any new cards. And so here I am, find myself one match playing against Saffron Olive, and I'm just like turn 3 Simulacrum Synthesizer, turn 4 Simulacrum Synthesizer. What am I gonna do? Concede because I don't have a new card? But it might
Right.
have been seen as like, oh my god, this person's not playing any new cards, and it's like, I am. I just haven't drawn that part of the deck because I might only have 10 new cards from the new set in it and
Mm-hmm.
just unfortunately haven't drawn it. Right? Different story if I get to play, some 4-drop artifact and pot it away to go get the Gear Hulk and get enter the battlefield effects plus Gear Hulk that ousts something. Um,
Right.
yeah, so some decks definitely get some new cards more than others.
Well, and it's interesting that you bring up that deck because that was one that I played uh, as well. I played a variant of it, and I got to say, I am completely enamored with that deck and repurposing Bay in general.
Yeah.
It turns out when you combine Birthing Pod and Tinker, you end up getting a pretty powerful setup. Who knew? And yeah, Simulacrum Synthesizer is absolutely the linchpin that holds it all together. And so for me, there were a couple of synergies with this that I think are great. Enigma Jewel is a card I've been absolutely loving, and so being able to drop the repurposing bay on 3 and activate it the same turn is kind of nuts.
Mm-hmm.
And the amount of 2-drop artifacts that are removal. Like you have your Tithing Blade, you have Saw. The one that I was playing was the Spring-Loaded Saw Blades, and so you hit Spring-Loaded Saw Blades on 2, remove a threat, and then on 3 drop the repurposing bay, and then turn it into a Simulacrum Synthesizer. Like, you're off to the races. It's silly good. So, I feel like repurposing Bay is the real deal. And it's the one that it was one of those where, like, as the servers were shutting down, I was like, well, okay, I got a time for another game or two.
Right.
Yeah, I'm going to play that
Let's try
deck
to do
again.
it.
Like, I gotta play this deck again. I just couldn't get enough of it. So, more to come on that, I assure you. So yeah. But to get to the point of the overall power level, I think that's a great call out, and you're absolutely right. Like the general power level of the set is nowhere near as powerful as Duskmourn. Duskmourn was also juiced. Like that set was nuts. So there's that. And Bloomburrow before it had a couple of bangers. A couple of good hits, especially with the talents.
So when it comes to the set power level, like from my recall thinking about it, I might be remembering this wrong, but like the cards in Bloomburrow, they took a little bit to see play. Like it wasn't right out the gate that they were being played. Like the Eager talent combo, and this is not standard, but Pioneer. The Eager combo with Cult Familiars, that took like maybe a couple of weeks for that to start coming to norm. It wasn't like day 1 or week 1. Now in standard, I don't think the mouse package was within right away in the first week either.
No, that took a minute. Yep.
If anybody's watching, and if it actually it was like week 1, I'm sorry, I misremembered, but I don't remember it during week 1. But that was also a while ago now.
I feel like a couple of the cards like Heartfire Hero we're seeing play in a couple of decks fairly quickly, but I think realizing that you could go pretty much all in on mice wasn't known right away.
Yeah, I think folks were just playing Heartfire Hero and Cacophony Scamp and seeing how they could bling with Callous Sword. Like that was the initial how quick can I do this? But definitely the mouse package
and
wasn't
then people
like,
realized
all in.
Yeah, wait, Emberheart Challenger and Manifold Mouse are also pretty dope. Let's get those moving. Yeah. Well, and the Storm Chasers talent this town, I feel like it was a good 2-3 weeks before people really caught on to how nuts that was. And now it's everywhere. So
I mean, we're talking about that combo only surfacing like a month ago, right? Or right around Spotlight Series Atlanta, which was 2 months into, or what, month and a half into Foundation's legal standard, and folks showed up with the Demir version and the Pixie version, and everybody was all worried at Atlanta, oh my god, am I going to be able to stop this Pixie deck, or what's the tech? And
exactly. Well, and so Jaffer, to get to, or if you'd like to, I think I see where you're going with this. So
so I wanted to just add on to that, like even like some things like that, those do trickle over to standard, from standard to Pioneer also. Like I'm always excited when we get a new set to see like what new. I'm mostly excited for when we get new sets to find out what new Pioneer deck is going to come out. And like this time around, it happened from a standard deck happening that trickled over to Pioneer. But what I was originally trying to get to, my chat was bringing up how, and I do agree with this, that with seeing the power level of Aetherdrift, And I agree with it, and I kind of hope it happens, that the power level of future sets coming out with the broader amount of sets we're getting per year are going to be at a lower power level than what we have been getting, since they're going to be in standard longer.
Agreed.
Yeah, I
Yes.
agree with you. And the reason I agree with you is because you can't just keep printing powerful sets like Duskmorn. Standard was there at one point, and we had too many bans in Standard. It made the format miserable to play, right? Because the answer was to just keep printing fire, right? Fire design. Just keep printing super powerful cards to deal with the previous powered cards that we built, that we brewed, and you end up having to ban multiple cards in standard because they were too powerful. They made up too large percentage of decks that were winning. And I'm thankful to be playing standard right now, where I don't think it needs any bans. If you wanted to ask my opinion, if I think of any card that's might get banned in the future, I would say This Town Ain't Big Enough is going to be the next card that's on the hit list, because the synergy is just too good. I'm not saying it's ban worthy now, but that's an example of a card that gets better with the better cards they print to synergize with it. And honestly, Storm Chaser's talent is a good of enough of a card by itself, that if you didn't want this synergy to be happening because it's too powerful, hitting an uncommon is less impactful than hitting like a rare or mythic that's, one, worth dollar amount, but two, might have play elsewhere.
If you're looking for an alternative marketplace online for Magic the Gathering singles and sealed products, I have great news for you. MagicJank.com is an online marketplace for people who love all Magic the Gathering has to offer, even the jankier bits. Join the MagicJank marketplace with your own storefront. Whether you're a small business or a hobbyist with more bulk lying around than you'd like, MagicJank.com can help your products reach new customers who love the game as much as you do. Now let's get back to the episode.
This makes me think of Karn, the great creator in Pioneer.
Yeah.
Like, and in Modern, really, or in Legacy. I think it got restricted in Vintage, I believe. I may be wrong, but like, the more artifacts we get, artifacts every single set, the better Karn gets. The more ETB stuff we get, obviously this town's going to get better. So like, I mean, like,
oh yeah,
I don't know.
Well, and that was the same logic that they used for banning the 3-drop Sorin in Pioneer as well, right? They said,
Right?
like, well,
No.
we want the right to, we want to be able to print big vampires in the future, and as long as this guy's around, we can't do that.
Kind of. It was just like, really, it was like 30% of the metagame too.
Well, there's that too,
So.
yeah. Yeah, problematic play rates are also a factor. Yeah, totally. Yeah. Well, but they could have easily killed that deck by banning Vein Ripper, but they chose Sorin instead, and that was part of the justification. Which, maybe that's a whole other can of worms. But the bottom line point of, will this card continue to be problematic or become more problematic later? The answer to that is a resounding absolutely. So yeah. So yeah, that's the case here. It's funny because I'm with you that I don't believe anything is ban worthy in standard right now. Things seem to be fluctuating naturally, and it's really, really lovely in that regard. I personally am ready to see Up the Beanstalk leave, but and it definitely won't anytime soon. So there's that, but it is what it is. Because that's another one that I think, This Town Ain't Big Enough probably wouldn't have been discovered as quickly. Like, at the end of the day, you don't need to be running Beanstalk for that card to be good. But I feel like the fact that it triggers up the Beanstalk is what kind of helped get it on people's radars quicker.
Well, if you take a look at that, like, the Beanstalk decks really are more effective in, like, that Selesnya build or Domain at, Zur, Overlords, whatever you want to call the deck now. Less focus on Domain, more cast, being able to use your higher casting cost cards easier, right?
Sure.
So like Up the Beanstalk into green Overlord into white Overlord.
It's
just kind of nutty, right?
Yeah.
And to think about it, when rotation happens, like we've said before, Beanstalk is still in standard because it's going to be in the oldest set in standard, Wilds of Eldraine. This card is banned in Modern, died for Omnath's sins or whatever you want to call it. And here, come to find out, like, this isn't even really a problematic card in that format, considering what's going on now.
Right.
But, like,
yeah,
Beanstalk gets to take advantage of the cards that have reduced mana cost. So, like, even in the Selesnya deck, there's multiple cards that do this. Luminous Rebuke is a removal spell that the Domain decks play, right? 5 to kill a creature, or 2 to kill a tapped creature.
There's like 2-3
which
variants of that in standard.
yeah, there's a
so
new
many.
one that's in Aetherdrift. It's called like Rise something. I don't remember its name off the top of my head, but it does the same thing as Luminous Rebuke and the same thing as Seize the whatever. What is the card from
Seize from
Duskmourn?
Slumber.
Seize from Slumber,
Yeah.
yes. And so
Yep.
those are exactly the same card. They are templated the same way. Maybe kind of silly that you can technically play more than 4 of these now that they exist. I don't know, but definitely a card that Beanstalk gets to abuse a lot.
Well, and that's the kind of thing where a 5-mana removal spell that can be reduced to 2 conditionally, that is not a problematic design. Like it shouldn't be, you know. And
but,
the
but
Beanstalk
2 mana to destroy a tap creature plus draw a card is
that's
kind
nuts.
of,
Exactly. Yes,
kind of.
that becomes problematic. So it's kind of wild how that happens. And so that's one of those where, it's Ride's End is the name of that card.
Ride's End. There you go.
Yeah, for 5, it costs 3 less if a targeting tap creature, exile target creature or vehicle. So it's even better because it exiles.
Better.
So, my goodness. Anyway, yeah. So,
I wanted to.
Yeah. So anyway, that's one of those things, and that right there is, I feel like Up the Beanstalk hasn't been truly problematic, or it hasn't been format warping, but it has been format defining in the time that it's been here. And so, I wish it was rotating out in September. That's all. Like, that's really what it comes down to. My feelings towards it aren't like it needs to be banned. It's just, man, that rotating out would have felt just right. You know, that would have been rad. But anyway,
I wanted to say something about like the comment that was made of like bans and standard. Like, if anybody thinks that there should be bans and standard, I get this all the time, and I'm sure you guys get all the time in your Twitch chats, even to like right now. Like, there's always people complaining in my Twitch chat, like, "Oh, this should be banned in standard." And I'm like, why? And then they just complain of like them basically the situations they lose to it. And we're getting a new set. Like, why do you want it banned? It could become irrelevant in a week.
You know,
and they often do.
Something I've come to just like accept is one, and this isn't a dig. One, Magic players just in general complain about anything, right?
Yes.
It doesn't matter if something is good. It doesn't matter if something's bad or even like middle ground. There will always be complaints.
That really grinds my gears.
Prime example of this is when they did the very first Aetherdrift weekly MTG stream where they started to preview cards. This was right before preview season started. And immediately, Twitch chat, Aetherdrift is mid. Aetherdrift sucks. Who cares about wacky races? And it's like, dude, or whoever, just watch the trailer. Listen to them talk. Explore their ideas about set design. Because the one thing will always be true. No matter what, Magic will always be Magic. And not every product is going to be for you. And that's totally cool, right? The way that they go about designing sets is trying to target, hopefully, subsets of folks who they want to try to bring into the game. Or in this case with Aetherdrift, you know, it continued the storyline of the Omen paths that we knew about 2 years ago when they said, here's the new story arc, right? It might be a different way that you get there, but we went from Duskmourn into the story arc in Aetherdrift, so, you know, it follows the story if you listen to the roles, right? And they integrated that by telling you in the story that Valgavoth from Duskmourn has a team in the Aetherdrift storyline and is trying to get the Aether Spark so he could take over the multiverse, right? So, you know, if you're wondering why Omen Paths and like Loot's here, because you gotta try to link the story from what happened in Outlaws of Thunder Junction. So they are linking the story, but bringing just like a new theme to it and bringing us back to Avishkar, which, quite frankly, the first time we went to that plane was a very popular plane. Then Amonkhet was extremely popular of a plane. And then they introduced to you Murugunda, which we haven't really been to before, but it was referenced in a previous set, and it has dinos. And if you're a dino hater, comment below because we need to chat. But
I'll say it because you're not. If you're a dino hater, you're wrong. But anyway,
there you
I'm
go.
kidding. But like, but I mean, only kind of. Because like,
make sure to add Hamhawks. Yes.
Yeah. No, that's Hamhawks 42. Yeah. Direct
No, you're both wrong. You're both wrong. If you're a routing register hater, you're wrong.
That's
yes, that too.
agreed. I'll get behind that. Yeah, that's fine.
But that's what it is, and I think I would hope that one day more Magic players would accept this fact. And again, linking it back to how powerful or non-powerful a set needs to be, brings you back to just card design in general. You can't constantly have banger after banger after banger of a set that's going to be high in power level. Magic is not fun when that happens. Take a look to what's happened with multiple Modern Horizon sets and like destroying that format. I used to love Modern. It's not playable. I hate to say it, it's just not, right? Unless you are a fan of combo decks that try to win by turn 3 or 4. Previous, it was free spells till they did a couple axes there. Then it was the One Ring. Even though it's a popular format because you get to play with your older Magic cards, which is great, it's just...
But you really don't get to.
Right.
Not really.
That's the problem. Yeah. You used to be able a couple years. I remember it was right... it was 2021. Star City Games had a tournament here in New Jersey. It was just a Star City Games jersey. This was right when in-person tournaments started to come back, during COVID. And I could sit down across from a player and play against Eldrazi mid-range, literally like not metallic mimic, Eldrazi mimic, the 2-drop, into like Thought Not Seer into Reality Smasher. Eldrazi Mimic, yes, that's the card.
Yep.
And that was a deck from 10 years previous, 2011 Magic the Gathering. So you could show up to a tournament with that type of a deck and still do decent.
Nowadays,
they might be less powerful than what's going on now, but you could still show up to play with your old Magic decks and try to see how you do. That doesn't exist in 2025. And so... And that's a result of printing cards that are too powerful direct into that format, right? Every card that's been printed, that's been a banger out of the Modern Horizon sets, have altered or rotated that format. And so, like, when you can't take that same like mindset that you need like cards that are that powerful to warp the format when you're talking about standard. You need something that is going to bring new players that can buy the product to get involved in a format right away that they want to do competitively for a lesser of a price tag. And the way that you do that is by creating a balanced format, and by doing a powerful set and not so powerful set and mid set and powerful set, like alternating that does that. So, if that's where I'll leave that.
No, I completely agree. And one of the things in the early access that I noted was, playing with decks that were trying to make max speed work was really interesting, because watching people try to create aggro decks leaning very heavily on the Aetherdrift cards, you ended up with these like turn 4, turn 5 kills that felt really good. Frankly, like there was some interesting interplay. The attacking and blocking mattered. There wasn't some crazy turn 3 blowout really, ever. It felt like I was playing Magic, like I really enjoy low speed, low power Magic. And I think that, Standard was kind of the last constructed bastion for that. And we've reached a point where that's kind of fallen apart, or not fallen apart, but fallen away a little bit, where it's becoming less of the focus. And we're getting to a point where Magic is just a faster game than it used to be in every format. The idea of a slow format just doesn't really exist anymore, in my experience. And so the fact that Aetherdrift is pulling it back a little bit, I think is good. It's also really funny that the max speed mechanic is like fairly slow, which I do find that funny, but I love it. It plays really well. Yeah.
I have a comment on, sort of on this topic. So like, how like every time we get a new set and we get people complaining of like how Magic isn't the same and how like, the game is too fast. I want standard from 10 years ago, and stuff like that. Like,
don't we all?
if you're one of those people that listening or watching this, like, you need to get over it. Like, we're in 2025 now. Magic is not going to be how it was 10, 20 years ago. And like, it's an ever-changing game. They have to be able to change it. The game has to change to pull new players in. Like, that's the reality of it. Like, and if anybody's upset about that, there's different card games you can go play. Why be upset and continue playing the game over and over and over again and being a vocal negative voice in the play space and nobody wants to listen to you? I get this in my Twitch chat all the time, so it's like I always like
That's fair.
want to like kind of vent about that here and there. It's just it makes
That's
no sense to me why you yourself are going to continue playing the game and be negative about it and make it a negative experience for people around you that you're just talking about it. And I'm kind of repeating myself over and over again. So I
yeah.
guess that's all I'm gonna say about it. Like it's annoying, and like I wish people would just move on. Like
That is fair, and I can get behind that. It's funny because I romantically look back to the past as well, and I do wish it played more like that. And so, but rather than just trying to be a poopy pants about it and just complain constantly, I want to call out when Wizards makes design choices that I appreciate and that I like. And I gotta say, I've been really enjoying playing with Aetherdrift, even though I gotta say the theme of it, like the actual mechanics of, or the car racing, is not something that I care about even a little bit. Not really. But I gotta say, it's been playing really, really well, and I think the max speed, the start your engines mechanic, is just a perfect balance of the 2025 level of complexity that we're seeing alongside smooth gameplay, because it gives you this emblem from outside the game that needs to be tracked separately, but that emblem itself doesn't do anything, unlike Tempted by the Ring or any of those where you have all these other elements. The thing I love about it is it only impacts certain cards. It is referenced on some of the cards, similar to City's Blessing, and you are fully responsible for tracking it, and your opponents are not impacted by it at all, unlike Initiative and Monarch and those kind of things, which can sometimes be fine and fun, but also sometimes can be a real pain in the butt. Or Day Night, for example. I feel like they learned a lot of lessons and applied to them very well. And one card that I played with a little bit in trying to do various aggro builds with Start Your Engines that I really appreciated, that I actually was intrigued by and played far better than I expected, was Perilous Snare. Did you guys play with this card at all?
No, and I never saw anybody play it against me.
Interesting. I definitely rocked it a couple of times, and I was impressed. And it felt very much like an older school kind of like white weenie aggro tempo card, and it was just really, really fun in that regard. It's an artifact for 2 and a white with Start Your Engines, and when it enters, you exile target non-land permanent an opponent controls until this artifact leaves the battlefield. And if you have max speed, it has the ability to tap and put a +1/+1 counter on target creature or vehicle you control as a sorcery. So it just boosts your team once per turn. It's just an additional counter each turn once you have max speed, and it removes the best blocker your opponent has on turn 3 or later. So
and
I loved
also
it.
happens to be a 3-mana artifact for Simulacrum synthesizer triggers.
No big deal, just saying. Yeah, exactly. It does all the things you want. I love this card. It's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway,
well,
it was just one of those
I definitely
where,
played a couple of these in the Simulacrum synthesizer deck we played.
heck yeah. I love it. Yeah, that Simpson deck, I can't. I need to slow down on it. But anyway, but yeah. So no, Perilous Snare was absolutely fantastic. Another one that there were a couple of the Start Your Engine mechanic, the 1-drops are fantastic, and I'm not just saying that because it gives me an excuse to gush about my boy Gas Guzzler again. But in my experience, this card is actually legit. Like 2-1 for 1 with Start Your Engines. If you're doing anything with Start Your Engines, you need to start it as fast as you possibly can. And, getting that established on turn 1 is really important. And in Standard, that's not going to be that hard, because you have cards like Gas Guzzler, which does it, or the Nesting Bot. This is a little uncommon. My goodness. I don't know about you guys, but this thing put in some work for me. And I'm impressed with the possibilities. It's a 1-1 for 1 with Start Your Engines, and whenever it dies, and it's an artifact robot, and when it dies, you make a 1-1 servo, and if you have max speed, it gets +1/+0. So a max speed Savannah Alliance, which,
Sure.
and it's
this card was like okay, right? I mean, it's a cheap card that interacts well with like Warden of the Inner Sky, or in Aetherdrift there is a Voyager Glide car, which is essentially Warden of the Inner Sky that is an artifact, right? That's a vehicle. So it works really well with that because you get to start the whole max your speed thing. Plus, it's a cheap creature to tap for this ability. The downside is it's not like Novice Inspector, which gives you a creature plus another artifact, right?
True.
but it's still like one of those cards that like kind of fits there. However, it is also an artifact creature. That's a 1-drop. That starts your engines. That you can tap, and that you guaranteed a Gleeful Demolition the next turn for the Jeskai Convoke decks. So it helps fulfill that requirement. But on the subject of start your engines, I want to say my most fun deck that I played with during the streamer event was certainly mono red goblins. Because turns out a lot of the new goblins are really, really, really good. The 1-drop that I referenced specifically is Burnout Bastronaut. It is a rare from Aetherdrift. This thing for 1 red is a 1/1 menace with Start Your Engines. And then you could pay 2 colorless to give this creature +1/+0 until end of turn. And at max speed, this creature has Double Strike. So you're probably looking at this card and you're like, why does that matter? And the answer is because all of the other goblins you play after this are going to either make this creature bigger or act as like that element that you need to be able to like pump this creature to high heavens. So not only does this creature have menace, so the next turn for sure you're starting your speed out unless, you know, they're removing this from the board. But you get to play other 1-drops in this deck, like Fanatical Firebrand that was reprinted in Foundations, right? That taps and deals damage to any target, or it's a 1/1 haster. Grease Wrench Goblin, which is from Aetherdrift. It's a 2/1 for 1 red, so already good stats, but you can exhaust it for 2 and a red, discard up to 2 cards, draw that many cards, which red doesn't have many draw card abilities in it that are this cheap, and you get to put counters on this. So you're like, yeah, these are like suboptimal goblins to play, right? However, you get to play Runvelt Horde Master, that's from Dominaria United. Pumps all your goblins +1/+1. When a goblin dies, you get to refill it possibly with another goblin. Did you know there are multiple goblin lords in Standard? Because there certainly is Dropkick Bomber, which was in Foundations for 2 and a red that gives all the goblins +1/+1. And it's a goblin that gives your other goblins flying. You don't think that's relevant, right? Why would you ever want to give your goblins flying? Well, what if they were all of a sudden 3/3 goblins and you needed to fly over top and overlord the Hauntwoods, right? Like, obviously you would need to do that. So that is one thing you can do. But go ahead.
I was gonna say, when it comes to the max speed thing too, it's in this, like, you can increase your speed the turn you start max speed.
Yep.
Which
sure
a lot of people probably don't realize that. I didn't realize that at first. Like, there's the Rakdos Lizard. It doesn't right away at the turn you play it. On turn 2, because like it starts max speed, then the ETB of pinging your opponent triggers, so then you go to 2.
Yeah.
For those that don't know about that.
The other one that I've seen people do is one of the raceways that have start your engines on them. Play that into a Ginger Brute and slap the first turn. So like Muragondor Raceway, Ginger Brute, pop. Like that's an amazing turn 1. Granted, it's all colorless. So like you may be setting up for failure for later, but you've got speed 2 if you're on the play before your opponent even, gets to play a land. So it's pretty
a choice. I mean, it's certainly something you can do.
You are allowed to do that.
Yeah,
Can confirm.
Just please don't do that if you want to win games. Don't do that.
Did you know that there's a goblin that starts your engine and gets you a 1/1 goblin that can attack the same turn that it comes out?
Oh,
that is Howl Squad heavy, and I think this card is 10 times better than Goblin Rabble Master used to be.
I think it's bad Rabble Master.
Oh no,
Rabble Master is much better. I'm I'm the mid-range player talking though. I'm not an aggro player.
Yeah. So, I mean, this card gets to pump you out some goblins every turn, which is great considering you've got 8 Goblin Lords or something like this in the deck. And its max speed ability lets you add a red for each goblin you control. So why does that matter? Because Krenko Mob Boss was in Foundations and taps to create goblins for each goblin you control. And remember that Burnout Bastronaut? That's a mana sink. And so you can pump that Double Striker to high heavens after you tap Krenko and make like 20 goblins and make your original 1-drop 11 power creature with double strike and menace. I played this deck many times in the streamer event, and I was killing people on turns 4 and 5 with this into Krenko, and it was crazy. I'm not even mentioning the goblin that is a menacing to create you a dragon either. Like these
that one
cards
also
are
happens
so
to
good.
exist. But I played against this deck a number of times, and it was truly disgusting. Like when the Howl Squad Heavy came down on 3, like I like you just see the Krenko coming on 4, and if you don't have a way to deal with it in your hand, it's just I don't know, your heart just sort of sinks because man, the amount of power this can produce so quickly and so consistently is kind of nuts.
Now, you're probably going to say to me, well, what if we get rid of all of these creatures that do things, right? Do you remember in Wilds of Eldraine a card called Agatha's Soul Cauldron that says you can put a counter on something and then it gets all the activated abilities of all the cards?
Yeah.
So if they kill your Krenko and they kill your max speed House Squad Heavy, if they kill your Bastronaut, they're all going to get these abilities. So you can just slam, put a +1/+1 counter on a goblin token, and we're set.
It's so silly.
We can with one of the Draconautics engineered in your yard, bam, exile it. Make them all exhaust to make 4/4 dragons. It's so sweet.
So, yeah, Goblin fans rejoice because they're back, and it feels real. I feel like the Howl Squad Heavy is really meeting a key need that the Goblin deck was missing in granting haste. That is just such a classic just element of Goblin flavor that we haven't really had. And so, yeah, I think this is kind of nuts. Yeah.
Listen, it excites I started playing Magic in 8th edition player in me where I got to play Mountain Raging Goblin. I'm ready for this. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I think they're I'm with it. It seems quite good. I am absolutely 100% pro Goblins. I'm going to say that right now. You can, cut to a week later in my stream when I was like, Howl Squad Heavy again? Come on, man. Yeah, it's going to happen. But but yeah, they seem really good. But one card that you mentioned there that I want to touch on is the Draconaut. The Draconautics Engineer. So this thing, which is apparently a goblin tied to a dragon's head with a Wile E. Coyote style rocket on its back. I'm not 100% sure what's going on in that picture, but it's freaking gnarly. And
the dragon's a vehicle.
I mean, it would seem that way. Yeah, they have saddled the dragon, it would seem. Yeah. But yeah, the Draconautics Engineer is pretty fantastic because it's a 2/2 for 2 with exhaust where you can pay 1 red, other creature control gain haste, and then you put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. So for 3 mana, it's a 3/3 with haste. Okay, neat. Or no, it's other creatures, sorry. So it doesn't give it to itself. And then you can also exhaust for 4 and just rock out a dragon, which, all right.
Are you leading into a certain green card with this?
I am. Would you like to tee this up? Because yeah, there's a synergy here that actually is like, I think decent. I don't know if it's going to be consistent enough to be competitive in standard, but it's a really cool line. And first time somebody hit me with it, I had a moment of just like, did they print Vengevine into standard? What's happening here?
And Bill Divine.
Yeah, it was pretty gnarly. So there's a green goblin called Afterburner Expert, which is a 4/2 for 3, and then it has an exhaust ability for 4 where you put 2 +1/+1 counters on it. And whenever you activate an exhaust ability, return this card from your graveyard to the battlefield. So the way this times out with the Draconautics Engineer, you pay a red, you put this ability on the stack, your Afterburner Experts go from your graveyard, assuming you have multiples. I mean, if the perfect scenario has happened, any number of experts that you've discarded or milled now re-enter the battlefield right before the Draconautics Engineer's ability resolves and gives them haste.
Yeah.
So it's pretty fantastic. Like they clearly designed that interaction to happen. And I know I went up against some people doing the kind of Gruul Delirium package with like Fear of Missing Out and that kind of and they just threw these 2 cards into it and holy crap, it worked.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so this weekend, was Aetherdrift pre-release, and the set is legal for Paper Magic upon pre-release, except for the RC that was in Portland. They chose not to make it legal for the Modern tournament.
And yet they made it
But
legal in the past.
yeah,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
in Japan there was a 477 person Aetherdrift Standard Cup with new cards legal. And the deck that took second place was a Gruul deck that did exactly this. Um,
Nice.
it kind of fused the Gruul Delirium deck that already existed with cards like this. So it played like 4 of the Patchwork Beastie, 2 Paul Patch Recruit, 4 of the Draconautics Engineer, 4 Fear of Missing Out.
Mhm.
Got to play 4 of the Afterburner Expert, 2 Questine Druid, and 2 Inti as the creature side
Yes.
of it. And then played like Torch of Tower, Obliterating Bolt, Scorching Shot, Seed of Hope to help mill you, but also got to
Ah.
play a sweet uncommon from the set in Dredger's Insight, which is a 2 mana enchantment, 1 and a green. Whenever 1 or more artifacts and/or creature cards leave your graveyard, you gain a life, which is pretty much everything. And when this
Mhm.
enchantment enters, you mill 4, and you can put an artifact, creature, or land card from among the milled cards in your hand. So this allows this deck to play a low number of lands, like 20 or 21 lands, right? Because you can mill, hit your land drops, put your delirium stuff in the graveyard. Perfect. And in the past, this deck played Wildfire Wicker Folk, which I can imagine if you want to play a more aggressive version of this deck, you can still play. But now the Afterburner Expert acts as that creature and artifact part of Delirium for Patchwork Beastie and Fear of Missing Out. And you get an additional enchantment in your yard available with
Mhm.
Dredger's Insight. And it played 2 Wrenn and Realm Breaker too, which can reanimate
Oh,
permanents from your yard.
sure.
So
While being a planeswalker itself to help with delirium. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
it
Good
was pretty
stuff.
sweet to see the melding of those 2 decks together. So I'm curious how this continues to do. Namely, missing from this deck that older versions played is Violent Urge, which gave your creature +1/+0 and double strike.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but that card's less good with the less trample creatures that you're playing. So you could have put
Mm.
that on the Wicker Folk before, for example, and just like one shot your opponent. Um, but yeah, with Fear of Missing Out though, getting additional combat steps with a double striking creature is still pretty powerful.
Oh heck yeah. I gotta say, I think if I was like preparing for the Pro Tour and I had to bring like a known meta deck, I would probably be bringing something like this because this
Yeah,
sounds awesome. Like if you're looking for something consistent that's still doing a neat, has kind of a
yeah.
neat line, I dig this. Yeah,
And
that's
hey,
super
second
fun.
place out of 477 people with this type
That
of
sounds good.
strategy, yeah,
Yeah,
is really elevating that Delirium deck.
excellent.
Was
I
there
d-
by chance any like sacrifice decks in any relevant placing?
Ooh, that's a
Not
great
in the
question.
top 8.
Top 32?
Let me see. Not in the top 16. Sacrifice decks. No, you'll be happy to know there was a Golgari Demons deck that came in the top 32 though.
Yeah.
That got I'm sorry, classified as Golgari Demons, not actually demons outside of Unholy Annex.
Yeah.
Um,
Ah,
but did get to play Bloodghast, which is kind of cool to see.
nice.
Um, yeah, no real sack decks. Nope, not in the top 32 anyway.
I asked because during the streamer event, I had a guest on my stream, Sam Sony One. Sam Sony One and I are both like he's known as like the Rakdos specialist.
Hmm.
Like I'm the mid range guy, but when it comes to Pioneer, I like to play Jund Sacrifice, and he plays Jund Sacrifice too. So we were working on Rakdos Sacrifice in Standard, and it was a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm working on working on a list that I'm gonna try playing day one of the set drop, and I'm building it to bring with the Magic on Chicago. But like mostly it's Bloodghast that maybe one work on this.
I mean,
uh,
that was a pretty big reprint. Yeah.
yes, but like just we have Disturbing Mirth that helps draw you cards with sacrifice an
Hmm.
enchantment or creature. Fear of Missing Out is really solid. Just Scavenger's Talent is a really good card too. But the new vehicle Gastral Thrill Roller is really good. I think that card is dirt cheap right now, and I think it's gonna shoot up in price. Um, it's a 3-mana 4/2 with trample haste. When it enters, it becomes an artifact creature on a turn. Crew 2. So any creature you play after turn 3 it pretty much has haste. And for 2 in a row, you discard a card. So, okay, I'll discard my Bloodghast or Undead Sprinter or Forsaken Miner, recur it and later. And when you discard that card, you discard return this card from your graveyard to the battlefield with a finality counter on it, activate only as a sorcery. So just it's a really solid beater. I can picture mono red playing this actually, also in like their sideboard.
Okay.
Yeah, these cards are sweet. Bloodghast returned to standard. We were playing it in a couple different builds just because folks want to play with Bloodghast again. I mean, hey, being able to pitch Bloodghast to cards like Bitter Triumph, Bitter Reunion, if you really want to, or there's a Start Your Engines version, right? Fear of Missing Out.
Sacrificing Bloodghast to Braids, sack Fable Passage, get it back.
Yeah,
let's go. Yeah, that's dope.
Awesome. So I like all of those types of strategies. Bloodghast has always been like a value engine and or a finisher at the end of the match when your opponents run out of gas and you can keep reoccurring yours. It's pretty sweet. I'm interested to see the different Bloodghast like abilities or decks that we get to play it in, whether like it's discard based or sack based like you're playing. But very, very excited for it.
Two last things I want to say about Bloodghast. One, I could picture this becoming a sideboard card if the Hopeless Nightmare decks are still a thing, because like it's free to discard and get back later.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
The bounce decks are not going to want to bounce it. It's a 2/1 that can't block.
Yeah.
But if they do, okay, I'll discard
it has
later.
haste late game.
Yeah, that's the next thing I was going to say. If you have Fear Missing Out on the field and you go to a second combat and your opponent's finally at 10, and if you do play Failed Passage, just get your other Bloodghast back before declaring attacks. They get to attack. It's really solid.
That sounds, that'll line up really nicely. So that's really cool. I dig it. Well, and it's funny too, because in the weekly MTG when they were talking about it, they brought Bloodghast into this set. Like they wanted to reprint it simply because it can crew vehicles well, which it can. So that's neat, I suppose. But it's funny because I have a feeling we're just gonna keep the Bloodghast and not worry about the vehicles part because it's fine.
Yeah, like it could be that this card's bad in the current standard, and it just like maybe a lot of people like us that just want to play an old card in standard are just gonna enjoy that, and then it will be told no in like 2 weeks. It's bad, don't play it, and some of us will still play it, and some of us won't.
Well, there's a lot of exile removal still running around, and that is not great for Bloodghast. So we'll see. We'll see how it lines up. I don't know. I'm glad to see it though. I just am. Yeah. Yeah. And I liked your call out about the Thrill Roller, by the way, because this is the kind of card that I tend not to think too highly of, know, but because it's a 3-drop, it's an aggressive 3-drop, and I tend not to think. I don't know. With how fast standard is, it just seems like it might be a little too slow. But the more you talk about it, it has the same thing that Bloodghast has going on, where it's very difficult to remove. And it does haste, so you are smashing the turn it drops no matter what, and that's really important. If you've softened your opponent up well and they manage to sweep the board, let's say, being able to throw this and deliver like 4 more after the fact, it's kind of a big deal. So I don't know, you're selling me on this. I'm definitely interested to give it a shot.
And realistically, I don't think players, at least on Arena, are not going to evolve fast enough until the tournament metagames change or the metagames of Goldfish change. So you're going to run into a lot of the mid-range black decks playing Go for the Throat still more than likely in the first week. So you're going to be able to get away with playing more artifact vehicles or creatures. So
that's
like, because like Go for the Throat, it's a 4 of in every single black deck right now.
Right.
Oh yeah. Well, and it, at a 4/2, this dodge is cut down as well. So I mean, the two premier pieces of removal just don't touch this thing. Yeah, that's fantastic.
Start playing more Shoot the Sheriff, folks.
For real.
And then be sad when people start playing Slick.
Blizzards.
I think
A
it's
lot
like,
of the lizards
lizards
are outlaws. Yeah.
I'm about to
Is
say,
Slickshot
another
an
card
outlaw?
that Shoot the Sheriff can't deal with? Gas Guzzler, just saying. Yeah.
I actually did not
Rogue is
play
outlaw,
with that
right?
card.
Anyway,
You didn't
I
play
just
with
I just
Gas
love that.
Guzzler?
No, I
Yeah.
didn't. Like, my chat was asking me, why aren't you playing with Gas Guzzler when I was playing my sacrifice deck? And it's my question to them was why?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm
That's fair.
not doing anything else with Start Your Engine. Like, the max speed thing's
Mhm.
nice, but if I want to draw cards, then I'll just run Corrupted Corruption, I guess. Like, the card seems solid. It really does.
Mm-hmm.
But Forsaken Miner just seems better, in my opinion.
Yeah, in the deck that you're playing, I completely agree. Yeah, so I'm obviously super partial to Gas Guzzler because it was my preview card, and I'm also giving Carlo a little bit of a hard time about Shoot the Sheriff because it was his preview card for Thunder Junction. So I just find that really humorous and delightful. I think Gas Guzzler is good. I don't know that we have a good shell for it though right now. Is the kind of the thing. And you're right, like a Rakdos, it reads like it should fit into a sacrifice deck, but I'm inclined to agree. Like it entering tapped, if you don't have any other Start Your Engines cards, that I think is the bottom line with all the Start Your Engines cards. If you don't have multiple pieces leaning into that synergy, it's probably not worth it. The juice isn't worth the squeeze, unless you have a consistent like early game plan and a really good payoff. And unfortunately, I don't know that Gas Guzzler's that, because you're right. Just running a couple copies of Corrupted Conviction is going to be more consistent than running this. That said, there might be like engines in Commander or like Brawl that can take advantage of this, and that's great. Honestly, like it feels like this is best if you're doing vampires, or rogues. Like the fact that it lines up to those kinds of strategies is probably where it's gonna play the best. I mean, the first thing I thought of is just because we were coming off of Innistrad Remastered, but it's like, oh, I could put this in, Edgar Markov. And it's like, yeah, you can, and that's fine. But yeah, I'm inclined to agree. I think Forsaken Miner is probably going to be better and more consistent.
I think out of all the Start Your Engine cards, the one that will probably see a tiny bit of play that isn't going to play any other Start Engine cards is Speed Demon.
Yep.
Like if the bounce decks see a downtick, I could see demons ticking back up. Like actually maybe start being played again, and this will take you probably when you're 4 or 5 drop slots. Yeah, it's 5 mana, but if you go Saphir and Golgari, for example, turn 1 Elf, turn 2 Annex, turn 3 Sheldred, turn 4 Speed Demon, you're winning the game if that's uninterrupted.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. And yeah, and the thing is the Pixie decks will have ways to make you sacrifice stuff and bounce stuff and disrupt it, but you're right.
Mm-hmm.
If that lineup is kind of a nightmare scenario, but most other lineups, I mean, if the opponent takes turn 2 off to kill a creature or to remove the Annex, like, all right, we're just going to keep on moving with all these other awesome threads, which is what made that Golgari deck so good and consistent for so long. It's like, yeah, you're going to kill one, I've got another one, it's fine. and this card does help ensure that you're just never going to run out of gas.
And this card having trample is also great. I mean, I don't know in terms of, well, first of all, you won't have to deal with the render and BS that people were playing against the Archfiend of the Dross.
People.
But this card having trample is relevant against like all of your flyers, right? Whether that be the 2/3 Fear of Isolation or Pixie, or the Overloaded Hauntwoods makes you 2/1 flying tokens, right? So you still at least get to trample over a bunch of damage for this. It can't be successfully double blocked by the Hauntwoods tokens. Can't even successfully be double blocked by 2 Fears, but it's interesting of a card, and it definitely pops with Sheoldred. I agree with you.
Oh yeah.
And also like the Annex too, like if you do get to resolve this and it's bounced, cool. Go to end step, Annex triggers if you have a demon out. Your opponent lost life, your speed increases.
Yep.
Oh yeah. Once during the early access, actually, I got a speed increase because my opponent tapped a pain land for colored mana. Like all of it works. Like that is like they wanted to cast an instant speed interaction. I think they were casting a kill spell to prevent the combat damage, but they paid with a pain land to do it. It's like, all right, that works.
Beautiful.
Nice.
Like I was just trying to get in some chip damage to increase my speed. It's like, yeah, that's fine. Anyway, but yeah, so no, I think you're right. Speed Demon is pretty fantastic. So yeah, it's a cool card, and this could stand alone as the only Start Your Engines payoff, and that's fine. But if
like
you do have
if
something
you,
that can establish speed early,
Mhm.
and it comes down, your speed is 3 or maxed, bonus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
if you get the 4, drawing 4 cards is a lot of cards, but 4
That's
life is a lot of life too. If you have
Mhm.
Sheltered, then cool, sure, I'll lose 4 life. I'll gain what, 8?
Yeah,
Right.
go off, King. Yep, absolutely. Yeah, Shieldred definitely makes that a lot cleaner. And also, I'm just gonna say it. I freaking love the Rat Fink, style artwork on this one. The stylized, that's just the kind of that hot rod cartoon thing. Oh, I love
Mhm.
it. I love it so much. Yeah.
I thought those were gonna be more expensive than what they are. If you look at the price of Bloodghast, it's pretty much almost the price of a normal Bloodghast.
Really? That's interesting.
Like, well, like I believe so. Like so, the one I was like looking at prices, pre-order prices at least.
Mhm.
It was like around $2 to $3 for that special art of Bloodghast, and
Okay.
then like a couple weeks ago, I ordered Bloodghast because I thought the price might go up.
Mhm.
And I ordered I think that was the LCI Commander version, the one where it's
Okay.
like a spirit vampire in armor.
Mhm.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah.
those were like around a $1.30, $1.40 a piece at that
Mhm.
point. And I like the price is not that bad for
No.
that special art variant.
That's good.
I guess that's also because like it's the only other format it's legal in right now that
Mhm.
would want to play it isn't playing it modern, because why would
Oh,
you want to
right.
play it in modern?
Right.
Right. You're
Card used
yeah.
to be
Oh
played in modern though.
I thought yeah,
yeah.
wasn't this a go to in modern? But yeah, times have definitely changed.
Speaking of standard, Carlo, you mentioned something about tournaments that happened this weekend. Um, there's a big MTGO content creator thing coming up. Are you going to be in that?
I signed up for it under the assumption it is standard. So that when I had signed up on the form, it definitely said standard, and I think we don't know what it is.
But oh,
Oh.
okay, that's weird because Torben said it was standard in the
Okay,
announcement.
good. Good.
Okay. Yeah. So I was kind of really vague with that. So for anybody watching, Carlo and I are part of the MTGO content creator program, and not every month. I don't think we didn't for a couple months at least. It might be going back to every month. There was a content creator clash, they call it,
Mhm.
and it's a 5K essentially. And they usually change the Daybreak changes the format each month. And this time it interested me to play in it. It's a standard content creator 5K, and I think there's only like 23 players right now.
You ready to
And
play against goblins?
I'm playing Sacrifice.
Cause let me
Let's
tell
go.
you, the first thing I did, the first thing I did after the streamer event from Arena, is I went on to the MTGO client for early access. Fortunately, didn't get to play any games, um, but I transformed it into a green-red goblins deck. That way, I can
Okay.
have sideboard options against Authority of the consoles, and it
Hmm.
doesn't hurt you land-wise to play like
Mm.
Thornspire Verge, Copperline Gorge, or Carpliston Forest.
Hmm.
Um, and so I put like Paw Patch formations in the sideboard, just because that's going to be the number one card to deal with is Authority of the Consoles, putting your
Yeah.
creatures into play tapped. Um, and I had tried to put some of the Afterburner experts in the deck too as an additional 3-drop because you already got like 8+ exhaust creatures in the deck. So I'm like, oh,
Hmm.
this can't be bad to like reanimate the cards, right? So I think I'm gonna attempt that in that tournament
Okay.
and see how we do.
I'm excited to see how it goes for you. Like I figured like, yeah, I've been playing Golgari for like a while, and I was RCQ with Golgari. I'm honestly burnt out and with it. Like I've been forcing myself to play it with nothing and play nothing else in standard, and so I figured like, well, I'm gonna play 2 challenges this week. There's a challenge tomorrow and a challenge on
Mhm.
Wednesday. I'm gonna try taking whatever build I decide into the challenge tomorrow, and see how it goes. And
Yeah,
same thing Wednesday, and then I'm gonna play whatever I come out with by the time Saturday comes around.
yeah.
And I just want to play. I want to play. I want to play Pioneer in Standard. I know I can't do that at all with Sacrifice. There's no Cauldron Familiar. There's no Witches Ovens. There's no Mayhem Devils. But I'm gonna do what I can.
Rock
Totally
on, man. I'm definitely
valid.
curious to see how. Yeah, I'm curious to hear how that goes because I think it'll be interesting. I feel like standard. I mean, since Oni called Anvil rotated, we haven't had any like real clear attempts on Rakdos but we have braids. We have I don't know Urbrass Forge. Something like there's all kinds of things that look like they should. I don't know. It should be some combination of them that come together to be a powerful deck. So I believe in you. I trust that you're going to find a line and make it happen. And I'm eager to hear how it goes.
For a
Yeah.
minute, like a month or two ago, there was a variant running around. I played it for like maybe 5 matches because it was a deck dono. But there was a sack variant playing. What's the demon enchantment? Not Annex, the reprinted one that was originally from Origins. Where you
Demonic
lose the
Pact?
game. Yeah, Demonic Pact.
Yeah.
So there's a variant of Rakdos Sack running around with that, and I think one copy of Harmless Offering. So it would just have ways to sacrifice it as an enchantment, like Disturbing Mirth, Torture Tower, I think Final Vengeance, stuff like that.
Yeah,
and then
Mirror, I'm assuming was in there too.
yeah,
and
Beseech the Mirror was in there too. So like if you got to that point, you can go Beseech the Mirror for the Harmless Offering. And give it to your opponent.
It's funny. I actually played a deck kind of leveraging that package, and it felt very much. It's funny because I don't think of that as a Rakdos sack deck, even though it's using a lot of sack fodder. Mine, I definitely went for the Harmless Offering combo because, of course, I would. But it felt very much like Control, at least the one that I built, the way that I built it. It didn't have that kind of aggressive, engine churn that I associate with Rakdos Sacrifice. It was very much make the board an incredibly hostile place for my opponent to put anything, and then ultimately just hand him a hot potato. That was the way that I played it, and it was great. Yeah, big fan. I stopped playing that one against viewers because, they were not having fun with it. But, I enjoyed myself.
I'd imagine I was miserable to play against at best of one.
Yeah, probably. It was, for sure. So, no, Demonic Pact is, it's still got it, man. This card is legit. Yeah, and with Bargain, it's actually pretty good, and you end up doing kind of an enchantment sacrifice thing rather than sacrificing creatures, which, it's definitely a different angle, and it's neat. It's a cool idea, for sure.
So this weekend, there's that MTGO Contra tournament coming up that Carlo and I are playing. And next week, there's actually MagicCon Chicago coming up where there's going to be Pro Tour Aetherdrift going. And all three of us are going to be at MagicCon Chicago.
Yeah, buddy.
And I'm excited about it. I believe we all have a meet and greet slot. You two, I think, have the same time.
Yep.
Actually, you have the same exact slot together, right?
Oh, yeah.
That's
no,
right.
You can meet both of us simultaneously.
For the price of one.
I know, right? Check it out.
Here. Yeah.
Yeah, buddy.
I have one on Friday, and I don't have it with anybody, but Headology happens to just have the same time as me.
Love it.
But Carlo and Ham, are you guys going to do any events at MagicCon like that involve standard or new cards?
Yeah, so in the daytime on Friday, so the con opens up at 10. And my buddy Celtic Warrior Games is actually hosting a Learn to Play Standard event from 10 till I think 5 p.m. Like he has one of the zones in the Spectacle Play area. So a few of us I know, well, he reached out to me, but a few of us are going to be like helping out with that. At least I am from 10 to 1. So he has built like a couple decks like for people to play with. Obviously, I'm going to have like maybe like 2 decks with me to play. And some other, content creators that are coming doing that too, to help out with that. I haven't signed up for any like competitive events. Normally at MagicCon, my schedule is go with the flow. So play with whatever I can as long as I go. Listen, at Vegas, I did that, and I was lucky if I played actually 4 games of Magic, including Commander games, the whole weekend, because I was just going. I was moving. You saw me around with a phone in my hand, and I was just like creating infinite social media content and just talking to folks and just like generally having a good time. So I have to imagine.
Cup with me.
When is the Standard Cup?
Saturday.
Oh,
it's like Saturday at like 10, I think, or 11.
Ah, okay.
And
Maybe.
then they might do, I think it's top 8 on Sunday, or they do top 8 like later on Saturday.
Oh, I see. So the problem is it might run into our meet and greet time if I do well.
Oh, I thought yours guys was on. Okay, my bad.
Yeah, we're on Saturday at 5 p.m. Yeah,
Okay.
it's Chicago time.
And I wanted to do the Pioneer Cup because the only competitive Pioneer you can play right now is on MTGO challenges or these cup events. But because there's no RCQs. But
yeah.
my meet and greet is at 5 o'clock, and if I do well like last time, I will be missing my meet and greet.
Yeah.
Dang. Yeah, that's unfortunate. Yeah, I wasn't planning on doing any of those events either because I know at conventions I'm definitely there to kind of socialize, network, and rub elbows, all that happy jazz. So I end
Kiss
up, yeah,
babies
I'm
and
also
shake
kind of on the
hands.
go with the flow plan. And I end up getting in, I don't know, like, yeah, 2 games of Commander a day, and just wonder where the time went. Yeah, I usually have that time where I look down at my, at my phone, realize it's 7 p.m. and I haven't had lunch yet. Like that's like, oh wait, oh yeah, yeah, which is great. I love it, by the way. But it's always a fun time. But time flies when you're at the con. Yeah.
I'm a person that will try to make a schedule beforehand, and the majority of the time it barely works out. Like for me right now, what I'm figuring is Friday I'm free until my meet and greet slot, and so I'm gonna do whatever. And then Saturday I'm gonna do the Standard Cup, and whatever else happens. And then Sunday I'm supposed to do an event with some friends I haven't seen in a while. Like I think we're doing those like limited open a box sealed things.
Oh, cool.
Oh, rock on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah, but
Nice.
pretty much, I'm in the process of building a new commander deck because, I need to do that with the new Mimeoplasm that was in Aetherdrift. And
I have a list that I've put together with that with some really sick tech, because
yeah.
I also I will actually be able to bring more commander decks than ever before, because I've actually been part of I'm part of an ensemble YouTube channel now that gets together every week and does commander called Generic Commander. Definitely go check it out. Anywhere you get your YouTube videos. And and we have a good time. It's me, Uncle Russ, Jolly St. Click, and Jarvis Moonbeam, and we just get together and total goofballs. And as a result, like that little voice in the back of my head that just says, "Hey, you should build a new commander deck." That ends up getting more and more of my attention as a result. And so I've been building so many freaking commander decks. Including Mono Green Storm. That's a thing that exists now. So let's just go with that. But yeah, so I built Mimeoplasm because I did manage to get my hands on one. And there is some nonsense you can do with that. Absolute nonsense. So I'm definitely eager to hear how you do yours and compare notes. Because it's gonna be silly.
So, sorry, go ahead, Carl.
No, I was just gonna say I started like pulling cards aside, and I'm like, man, I could actually just take a bunch of cards that are standard legal and just play like mana fixing from older sets and build a decent like Mimeoplasm build. And I'm not doing that because I love cards like Runescar Demon too much. Even though that is in standard again. But I also love playing like Vraska, like 4-mana Vraska that blows some stuff up.
For sure.
And just a bunch of like sweet older cards that either I can double as like a reanimator deck or as good targets for Mimeoplasm. And I was thinking of trying to do a thing where it's like make a legendary focused deck like Sultai Legends, but cards that don't care if I make non-legendary copies of them. So like playing cards like Double Major, and so I thought that would be pretty cool.
So you can have Mimeoplasm just become whichever legend and then just make a non-legendary copy of it and then have it turned into something else. Dude, that's hilarious. I love it.
Yes, exactly that. Because it's fun, and why not? And, hopefully people don't Pajuka Bog me. That would be beautiful. But, who wouldn't want to transform Mimeoplasm into Skithiryx and then make a non-legendary copy of Skithiryx and have a possible Poison Wind con in the deck?
That'd be pretty good. I think that sounds like
a
great plan. The one that I'm definitely I'm gonna be so happy when I make it work is Phage the Untouchable.
Oh man,
that's the place my head went to because I can reanimate it without it entering. So that's neat. And if during the declare blocker phases it's an invisible stalker or other unblockable creature, then the opponent can't block it, but then it's Phage, and I don't know. I'm a bad person when it comes to this. There's Also, when I was looking through my things, I found about 5 copies of Riptide Mangler. Do you guys remember that card at all?
Ooh, yeah,
That's
yeah.
before my time.
Yeah, well, yeah, there was a time when I opened it, it was going for like $10 because it was a standard staple at the time, or type 2 staple at the time. It's an 0/3 for 1 and a blue, and it has the ability for 1 and a blue change its power to target creature's power. You'll notice it doesn't say other, and it keys off of the total power. It has been errated so that it only changes the base power, and Mimeoplasm is base 0/0. So if it has let's just say, for the sake of simple math, it has 6 counters on it. It is a 6/6 with base power 0. You can pay 2. It now is a 12 power creature, because its base power is now 6 plus the counters. Cast it again, its base power becomes 12. It still has 6 counters, so you now have 18. So if you can sink a bunch of mana into it, it just becomes unreasonably gigantic. And I love doing silly things like that. And Mimeoplasm opens those kind of lines up. I don't even think this is particularly good, because the moment you transform it off of Riptide Mangler to another creature, I'm pretty sure you lose that base power. It resets the base power to 0/0. So, like, is it really that great? Like, I don't know. But but it's fun, and I'm looking forward to that.
Fun, that's all that matters, right? Nobody likes getting Thassa's Oracle in Commander. Surely that's unfun.
Exactly.
But when you can do things like this, it's probably acceptable.
Yeah. So with Mimeoplasm, the Mimeoplasm Revered one is one of those cards that if you get your hands on one, go through your bulk, go through your cards, and look at those cards with a new through a new lens, and seeing, like, if I turn the ooze into this, what'll happen? And there's some really fun stuff that you can come up with. Yeah.
You literally can play the new March of the World Ooze with Mimeoplasm, and Mimeoplasm starts out as that base 6/6, and your other creatures that you might reanimate that have sweet ETBs but low power toughness also become 6/6 threats.
Heck yeah! Or you can you can mutate on top of it and just give everybody a headache. That's also an option.
Don't you dare mute.
So, what decks are you guys bringing with to the convention?
So
I'm definitely bringing 2 standard decks, for sure. In terms of commander decks, I will be bringing my Eska, God of the Tree, Planeswalker deck, of course, which did get a new card that I got to put in it with Aetherdrift. In fact, it's in the Temur Energy Precon. It's Aetheric Amplifier. The card costs 3 colorless, and it lets you tap for a mana of any color. But you could pay 4, tap it, and double the amount of double the number of each kind of counter on target permanent. So it doubles Planeswalker's loyalty counters, which is all that matters. So yeah, I get to play with that new card in that deck. Definitely.
It's funny you mentioned that. I put this in my Mimeoplasm. So...
yeah, it's so sweet. It's a mana rock. At worst, it's a mana rock, right? So it got to replace my mana crypt that was in the deck that I can't play with anymore. So there, yeah. And so I'm also bringing my Sorin of House Markov commander deck. I got some new sweet cards from Innistrad Remastered that I got to put in here. Especially some old border foils like Lisa and old border Sorin that got banned in Pioneer. So I was excited for that. And then I'm also bringing this new Mimeoplasm deck, and probably my Aurelia, the Law Above, Boros mid-range deck, or AKA Angels with Swords. Yeah.
Heck yeah. I love it. Yeah, I have an Insidious Roots standard deck that I might bring. Because honestly, why not? Like, when else am I gonna get a chance to play it? Well, actually, whenever at a local game store in my area. But I suppose. So I'm definitely I'll probably bring that down, because why not? I think it's a lot of fun, and it'd be fun to throw down. But other than that, I'm bringing a ton of commander decks. My signature deck that is probably going to be in my quiver every day, no matter what, is Ten of the Harvester. It's Abzan, like, group hug with an aristocrat combo finish. It's a lot of fun. I enjoy it. It gives me an excuse to reanimate stuff. It is what it is. It's my thing. But yeah, other than that, I've got a ton of just decks all over the place. The other one that I'm going to be bringing is a deck with Gigantha the Wellspring as the commander, which it's the Gigantha is irrelevant. It's not the point. The point is Door to Nothingness. It's a 5-color Door to Nothingness deck. It's you guys have both played against it. It's delightful. I enjoy it very much. Yeah. So I'll be bringing those for sure. Yeah, it'll be all over the place. I have an Eve Progenitor Ooze. I also have a Geralf the Fleshright, which I'm actually pretty proud of. That plays pretty darn well. So I'll be all over the place, all over the map with my commander decks. I'm hoping to get at least one commander win though, because in Vegas I played like all weekend. I played, I don't know, like about a dozen games or so, and I got absolutely smoked in every one of them. And one of the things that I found was the Door to Nothingness deck actually created a very cool game pattern though, because I would ramp up, not really interact with anybody else, let everybody else set up, and then I would have a moment of just being the threat that everyone had to band together to defeat. They inevitably would, and then the game would come to a, and then they would just beat each other up and the game would come to a natural conclusion. And it was actually kind of fun to, it actually played out very, very well for a deck that's trying to do something that is truly problematic. But it actually played better than I expected, and a lot of fun games were had, because there's something about setting up, Door to Nothingness and then like cloning it twice, and they're all tapped with this understanding of like, if I untapped, you're all dead. Like, so what are you guys gonna do? And the answer is murder me, which they do, and it's fun. I enjoy that. It's a fun little challenge that I give a bunch of strangers often. So if you want to get caught up, if you want to try to have me shove you through a door in MagicCon Chicago, come find me, because that is a thing that I will be doing. So
literally,
I can't wait. It's a ton of fun. Yeah. I also recently discovered the joy of Door to Nothingness and Eartha Joe. I didn't realize how dope that was. Eartha Joe Frontier Mentor is a Boros card that whenever you activate an ability that targets a creature or player, you just copy the ability and choose a new target.
Yeah.
So like, hey Carlo, I would like a target player to lose the game. I'd like you to lose the game. Oh, and with this copy, hey Jaffer, could you also lose the game for me? That'd be great. Yeah.
No, please.
It's dumb and I love it. So yeah. Anyway, so those kind of new ads have occurred there. So I'm also excited because cards like Tune Up from Aetherdrift fit into it perfectly. Like I already had Refurbish in there. It's like, let's do it again. So, but yeah, so good stuff. But yeah, so Jaffer, other than the standard deck that you're bringing, got any other plans for other decks to be carrying around?
I'll be bringing Pioneer and a commander deck. Like to be honest, I'm not going to be there to like go on my way to play commander. Like if it happens, that happens. Fair. Kind of thing. I'm not going to go on my way to look for commander games.
You won't have to look far for any commander games, I assure you. Yeah.
For me, it's more like I only enjoy playing commander with like people that I actually know. I don't enjoy playing against random people. And there's nothing wrong with the format. It's just I would rather sit down and play a game of standard or Pioneer.
Yeah.
Well, the thing about commander is you have to be at the same. You got to get the kind of experience out of it that you want, and calibrating that with strangers is difficult. It just is. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I get it. Very cool. So I know we've been running a little bit long, and I don't know about you guys, but I feel like we've touched on the things that I definitely wanted to touch on. So are there any other thoughts when it comes to Aetherdrift, any other cards or decks or anything like that you're looking forward to trying out that you want to touch on before we call it a day?
I mean, the only other thing that I really am excited to try, we probably played against a bunch of these decks during the streamer event, was like a cycling deck with the new Monument 2 Endurance. Yep. Right? The 3-mana artifacts. Like when you discard a card, you either get to make your opponent lose 3, you draw a card, or create a treasure token. I saw a bunch of people trying out this deck, so I'm curious to see how we can move towards perfecting it. There are a lot of older cards that care about discarding cards. I know I played a Rakdos deck that was playing this with like Bloodghast for obvious reasons, playing the Bitter Triumph, the Start Your Engines card. That was pretty sweet.
Inti is is just a slam dunk in that kind of a setup.
Yeah,
and the one that I want to use going into something like this is a Marauding Mako.
Mm-hmm.
That little guy. Whew, there's something
That
there.
one,
It's a
and then
1/1.
there's the blue flyer too. Yeah.
Oh yeah. But yeah, these cards that get +1/+1 counters as you're discarding cards. So yeah, like Marauding Mako is a 1/1 Shark Pirate for 1. Whenever you discard 1 or more cards, you put that many +1/+1 counters on this creature. So all of a sudden, cards like Brass's Tunnel Grinder, Bitter Reunion, any of that jazz, it's just like, I mean, it supercharges those something fierce. So
during the streamer event, I ran into 3 variants of this this archetype. The Rakdos one that Carlo mentioned. I ran into Is It. And then I ran to Jeskai. The Is It and Jeskai ones were similar, but the Jeskai one was an Oculus deck in kind of disguise. Like, it's just cycling, discarding things. And then it did Helping Hands to reanimate the Oculus, and had, like, Get Lost and stuff like that. And then there was Prophet's Edict Memory, because you're cycling cards to draw a card.
Sure.
So put counters on, like, this 2/2 that with Flying and Vigilance.
Yeah,
that sounds
Steam
pretty
Core
gnarly.
Scholar is awesome with all of those things.
Yeah.
From Karlov Manor. So remember when we mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, some of these cards from Karlov Manor maybe synergizing with the Aetherdrift cards. This and Prof's Memory are 2 examples of cards that rise in playability because some of the discard shenanigans. We've been recently playing Steam Core Scholar, though. The Oculus decks have been making a comeback in Standard within, like, the last couple weeks. Both a Dimir variant and a Helping Hand blue-white variant, to where you don't need to play Haughty Djinn anymore.
Oh, wow.
Because that card's, like, not great. But you can play cards like Steam Core Scholar and Prof's Memory in this deck with, like, Duelist of the Mind from OTJ, or play a Jeskai version with Fear of Missing Out. Mana's a little bit harder, but it can be done.
Nice.
And all of these cards work really well with the Monument card. So you can fill your yard up to make casting Oculus easier for you, or you can have it as this Helping Hand deck, like Jaffer said. So, and hey, listen, when 1, discarding a card to draw a card is fantastic. 2, when you can find an alternate way to destroy your opponent, putting a non-legendary artifact like this on the battlefield is pretty sweet.
Yes. That sounds dope. I love it. Yeah, definitely want to tinker with that, because I know I tried to build an Is It deck that really leaned into the pirate theme, and that was not where you want to go. Like, you definitely want to focus on the discard payoffs. Yeah. Very cool. Awesome. Well, is there anything coming up that you guys want to talk about? We talked about Chicago quite a bit, and also we're all 3 of us are streamers, so you can find our links in the description. Come pop by, say hi, drop follows, and hype and all that jazz over there. We'd appreciate it very, very much. So yeah. Anything else before we bring it in for a landing, gentlemen?
Come visit us at MagicCon Chicago.
Indeed.
Oh, we are going to have a special token, aren't we?
Yes, we will actually be giving away a treasure token that is going to have unique art actually showcasing all of the members of Team MagicJank who are at Chicago. So more to come on that, and I've seen the artwork. It actually is freaking awesome. So yeah, come find us, and we will be giving those away.
You'll see it. Jaffer's literally swimming in the gold.
Yeah, buddy. Yeah, and Carlo and I are making off with a really sizable treasure chest. It's pretty rad. Yeah. It's delightful. So yeah, remember, so Team MagicJank is actually looting a dragon's hoard. It's freaking awesome. So yeah, you're gonna want those, because I don't know about you guys, but I've never had the thought, man, I have too many treasure tokens. Not once, whether in game or just around.
I mean, you're always in need of it, right? Like, it's in literally almost every type of format. So
exactly.
Yeah.
So you kind of can't go wrong. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, gentlemen. This is always an absolute pleasure. Let's do this again sometime. Just saying. So, yeah,
of course.
And thank you, dear listener, dear viewer, for tuning in. We appreciate you very, very much. So until the next one, stay classy, and we'll catch you later, everybody.
See you later.